Hi there, this is Brailiff, aka Colonel Mustache, and I'm just going to be rambling about the Broforce Forever update and giving my thoughts and criticisms. Uh, this is mainly for myself, just to get my thoughts out into the world, but if the developers of Free Lives are actually watching this video, well then, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to my inane ramblings. Um, Broforce Forever is a fantastic update, but I do have a lot of thoughts on them, some criticisms. Um, One of the most noteworthy uh, complaints that I've seen is the fact that online custom campaigns are still not back in. That's a huge bummer because I know some people have been waiting for that to be back in for literal years, and as I understand it, it's not a terribly difficult change. I think Gorzon has modded it back in, but not everyone knows about that. Uh, so that's a crying shame. I hope it can be re-added in over the next few days. I assume there's going to be some bug fixes and whatnot. So if that makes it in, I hope it does, because that's going to be a shame if being able to play custom campaigns online is just never a feature in the game again. Um, Another thing that I don't know as much about, but I know Soup Calhoun was talking about this, was one of the functions that they use to make the really intense custom levels was broken by the update. It's called call methods. I don't know exactly how it works. All I know is Soup said that that's one of the two things he uses to mod his levels, and it's broken now. So I think a lot of his levels were broken by the update. That's a crying shame too, because going forward, custom campaigns are going to be the only new Broforce content we get, at least in Broforce 1. Uh, so having that fixed would be nice if possible. I have no idea what goes into that, uh, but I thought I would air that just in case anyone is listening to maybe look into that. Now I'm going to talk about the new bros in the update. Um, one thing I have noticed with all of the new bros except Bert is that they are all terrible at fighting worm enemies. None of their gimmicks work at all. Buffy's holy water doesn't do anything. Desperado can't make them dance, obviously. Xena's chakram bounces right off without dealing damage. Uh, uh, Demolition Bro can't freeze them, and his bombs deal weirdly low damage to them. So, like, terrain enemies, specifically worms, uh, are, like, hopeless for those characters, with the exception of Bert. His bullets work pretty well. So, thought I would mention that. But I think out of the six new bros, the only one I would say is actively disappointing is Buffy. And the reason is her holy water. And the reaction to this holy water has been exactly what I expected from the public, which is people say, What is it? It doesn't do anything. I threw it at a guy and it didn't do anything. Because outside of hell levels, it's a purely defensive tool. And I think that was a mistake, because while it is cool that it burns hell enemies specifically, that's a fun detail. It's not. It's not even that great in hell. Like, if you put Buffy in hell and compare her to, say, Dirty Harry's Molotovs or BA's incendiary grenades, she's not like significantly better than them or whatever, even in her element. So, and outside those levels, well, those specials are leaps and bounds better than Holy Water. Like, it's a fun defensive tool, but it's kind of niche, and it feels like it should be doing something offensively. Now, I'm sure Evan has seen our suggestions at one time or another. The one CPU made was the idea of converting converting mooks hit by holy water into villagers. In fact, Gorzon has actually modded that in right now. It's not the most elegant way to represent it, but it works. Personally, I think that's really cool. I've done a run with that function, and it's a lot of fun. Villagers were buffed in the Broforce update. You know, they can upgrade their weapons, and their AI is a little better, and they're really cool. But they're still a very subtle and obscure part of the campaign that they just don't come up often. And having a bro that can like reliably like summon them basically would be a fun way to make them a more prominent mechanic that you can utilize on command rather than just in the very, very few levels that utilize them. Uh, the thing I suggested was to make the resurrection more offensive by having Buffy, when she's revived from holy water, cause some kind of divine retribution or holy explosion that just smites enemies nearby or causes some kind of damaging effect. So hear me out. Here is my pitch for that to make it sound as cool as possible. So Broforce is all about chain reactions. Like, that's one of the core mechanics. You know, you throw it, you shoot a exploding barrel, that explodes, it kills, suicide nuke, he flies away, explodes and kills another guy, and that explosion sets off a propane tank that flies into some rocks that fall down. You know, that's one of the core mechanics of Broforce. But in most cases, I would say, your options when setting off a chain reaction are to stand in the chain reaction and probably die as the explosions catch up to you and kill you, or stand off to the side and just wait for the chain reaction to pass so that it's safe for you to continue with the rest of the level. So most of the time during that, you're not actually doing much. You're just standing around flexing and waiting for things to go off. Buffy, I think, has the potential to be the only bro who can become part of the chain reaction. So, say she throws down holy water next to some exploding barrels next to some enemies, jumps down and sets off the exploding barrels, blasting her away, and then when she revives, she explodes and deals damage to a bunch of enemies nearby, and that sets off some more explosions and all that. She would be the only character. Every other character can set off chain reactions. In this case, Buffy would become the explosion chain reaction. That, I think, sounds really cool. I think that's the best way I can sell it, is just holy water allowing her to become part of the chain reaction. I think that would be really cool. That's my pitch. The only other thing that's disappointing about her is, so she has 2 melee attacks, which makes a lot of sense. She's Buffy, she's got all sorts of moves, but she's got 2 melee attacks. The stake stab, which is actually quite good, it deals good damage. I think it's just an edited version of RoboCop's melee. And then she has a roundhouse kick. Well, the problem with the roundhouse kick is that, well, one, it deals knife slashing sound effects for some reason, and that's just feels wrong. It doesn't feel like you're drop kick. It doesn't feel like you're roundhouse kicking someone. It feels like, and they just exploded, which melee attacks don't normally do. So I guess I'm kicking him with bladed feet or something. But the other thing is, it deals way less damage than the stakes. You see, I just killed him in almost 3 hits, whereas the kicks deal regular knife damage. So I think the obvious solution to that would be, first of all, make it blunt, make it deal punching damage instead of slashing damage, but also make it deal as much damage as the stake, so that you have the option to use it without it just being a straight downgrade. And in order to differentiate it from the stake, I would say just give it heavy knockback, because she's Buffy. She's got, super strength and athleticism and all that. Let her kick a guy across the room to differentiate it from the stake, which drops an enemy down on the ground. So, say if there's a mook over here and you want to kick an exploding guy into him, you can kick him. Whereas if you want to throw down holy water and set off a chain reaction right here, you can stab the guy and drop him on the ground. That's what I think is the easiest way to do that. And that's simple enough that could maybe be edited in with the bug fixes. Again, I don't even know if bug fix update is happening, but that feels like a simple enough tweak that it could maybe work. So that's my stance on Buffy. I think she's the only bro that right now feels kind of underwhelming of the new batch. I think she could use some work. Just thought of another obvious buff while I was editing this video. Give Buffy the super speed and jumping ability similar to Braid. It makes perfect sense. She has super chosen powers in the show. It would be a nice buff to her otherwise, a somewhat mediocre moveset. And it would be a nice, counterpart to Braid. The Vampire Hunter and the Vampire both have, similar levels of athleticism and agility. So then we have Broniversal. What with his complete overhaul, he's basically a brand new bro now. And here's the thing. His new special is excellent. It's just a whole bunch of fun stuff at once. I got no complaints about that, really. His new kick is fun. It's good to have a bro that can functionally use steroids whenever he wants. I think that was a good addition to the game. The problem with new Bro Universal is his new gun. This thing kind of sucks. I don't think I've seen a single person who actually likes it more than the old one. As far as I can tell, this is just the exact same as Rambro's gun, except it doesn't fire as fast. And I mean, saying a worse version of Rambro's gun is pretty bad, considering his is one of the, less potent guns in the game. I mean, yeah, during his special, it's better, but it's not like way better. Like, it goes from a moderately worse Rambro gun to a slightly better Rambro gun, which I don't think is personally very interesting. I actually quite liked his old gun. That was the one part of his old kit that I quite liked. The big slug shot that carried people. That I thought that was cool. So honestly, I don't know if there's still time to do it, but I would just bring that back, and then during his special, just do the same thing here. Just increase the fire rate for the slug shooter. I think that would make it perfect, personally. The only other thing I can maybe complain about, it's not a huge deal, but when early videos of his rework were being shown, he could just melee near dead mooks to revive them. He can't do that anymore. In fact, he has no way to revive mooks outside of his special. I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity because that function seemed cool. Revive mooks are not especially good, so being able to revive them without using your special would maybe make them slightly more worth it, since you could do it to every mook you come across. Because the mooks are pretty bad, both because they're way slower than you, they can't climb very well, and they die of fall damage. So I would say if they're meant to be a noticeable part of his kit, I would say either make them more mobile and not die of fall damage, or bring back that, function of being able to revive them for free by, pressing some button near them. Now, Xena is one of my new favorite bros, and also got me to watch Xena, which is the incredible show, so thanks for that. Her primary attack is a lot of fun, I think, but the main thing about her that I think everyone in the beta agreed is that her chakram could use something. It's a lot of fun, and the fact that it will return from a random place off screen is hilarious. But the problem with it is, so one suggestion that people made is that maybe the option to throw it horizontally, so you can more effectively hit enemies with it when you're not in an enclosed space, which could work. But one suggestion I had that you might have just seen, because Gorzon modded it in for me, is making it so that the chakram is not automatically picked up again by Xena until you press the special button again. Otherwise, until you press the special button again, it will continue to bounce around and will not be picked up even if it touches Xena. And I understand why it automatically gets picked up, because it's like Max's boomerang. But the deal with Max's boomerang is that it's a largely stationary weapon. You throw it out, and then it hovers in place and then falls to the ground. So it would make sense to pick it up off the ground and throw it again somewhere else. But with the chakram, it flies around and bounces around of its own accord, and most of the time there's not really a downside to having it out, unless you don't want to kill an enemy for some reason. So as you can see here, just seems like if it flies off screen a second time, by the way, it doesn't come back again. That I don't know if that's intentional or not. But anyway, back to my point. Having it be automatically picked up, in my experience, can make it annoying to use in enclosed spaces, because my instinct is to throw out the chakram, and while it's bouncing around and causing chaos, run in and use my sword swings. But what happens usually in that case is I just wind up touching the chakram and picking it up again. So then I can't throw it out again until I stand still and throw it, which leaves me vulnerable, because then I don't have the invincibility frames from the sword slashes. I did a full run with this mod that Gorzon made, where the chakram is not automatically picked up, and personally, it is so much more fun. You can throw out the chakram and jump into the fray at the same time, and just become two whirlwinds of death. It is so good. I really enjoy it, and that's a simple enough change that I don't know if that could be implemented immediately. Probably not. I know there's probably not going to be any actual balance changes, just bug fixes. But uh, personally, I think that makes her 1,000 times more fun and better. Um, the other thing about Xena is her melee attack. I get the idea that this was meant to be more, and that just that just didn't make the cut because the fact that she punches with the chakram, but then she can do it even when the chakram is out. I assume there was originally going to be some other mechanic going on there. Uh, Problem with this is that she is currently the only melee bro whose melee attack doesn't have any kind of alternate use or utility. Like, Braid and Brode have the throwing knives, Bronan has the air smash, Broheart throws a sword. But Xena is like, I'm pretty sure functionally this is just the knife or the punch or whatever. I can't think of a single reason to use this. Uh, if I were to make a melee attack for Xena, I know it's far too late for something like this, but I would have either utilized her pressure point powers to where she can cut off the blood flow to people's brains. I would probably just interpret that similarly to the Brode's special. Maybe make it just a less intense but reusable version of that, where you punch a mook and then after a second they'll do a minor explosion that deals damage to enemies nearby. Or another thing Xena likes to do in the show is spit wine through a torch and turn it into a flamethrower. I think that'd be a fun melee attack. That would just allow her to ignite enemies and set off explosive barrels from a couple steps away, which currently she really struggles with. She doesn't really have any way to do that. But that aside, I think the change to her chakram is the most important. So Demolition Bro is one of the more solid of the new bros. He's a lot of fun. I only have a couple hang-ups with him. So first of all, he just has a regular knife. I think the stun baton from the movie would have been an obvious choice. I assume there just wasn't time to add it in. That's something that I would like to see. Should there ever be a Broforce 2? I know a lot of people want that. If there is one, I think it would be really cool for melee attacks to be more prominent aspects of the Bros movesets, because right now in Broforce, most Bros melee attacks are kind of throwaway. Like, they're not really all that useful in most situations. Some Bros are, like Neo, Brocketeer, Rochetti. Their melee attacks are genuinely useful and like excellent parts of their kit that are like actually like more useful than their weapons in some cases. But most characters, the knives and the punches, like, there's usually very little reason to use them. And I think putting more thought into them in a hypothetical sequel to make them, the trifecta between the primary ability, the special ability, and the melee attack, I think that'd be a really fun way to go about it. To make it more than just a little silly, satisfying gimmick, making an actual fun part of their kit. But that's just a side tangent. The main problem I have with Demolition Bro is he's got these awesome Bomberman bombs, and his name is Demolition Bro. Problem: he sucks at demolition. You see this big cross-shaped explosion? You'd think that would create a giant cross-shaped hole in the ground, right? But it doesn't. And I think the reason for this is, so it's technically a chain of explosions, but those explosions can't spawn inside the terrain. So it can functionally only break one layer of blocks at a time, at least horizontally. And that, ironically, makes Demolition Bro one of the worst bros at demolition. So the obvious solution, I think, would be to make the explosion be able to spawn inside blocks. I mean, theoretically, that would mean he could attack enemies through walls, but I don't think that's a crying shame. There are some bros who can already do that, like Bromax. But yeah, I think that would make him feel a lot better, because right now this just doesn't feel right. It feels janky. All right, so Seth, the oddball, he's such a good bro. He's possibly the best bro in the game. He is so much fun. I mainly have just a couple nitpicks with him, but there is one major thing with him, which is if you hold up and jump and then teleport, you can just fly forever until you let go. just skip the whole level. I mean, he can already pretty much skip entire levels, but now he can really skip entire levels by just flying forever. So that's an issue. It's really easy to do. Once you know about it, it's trivial. So that should probably be fixed, I imagine. Um, the only other things I have for my nitpicks, his gliding is really cool, but it feels too slow. I feel like it should go faster, even if even if you have to lower the duration to make it to like make the total length the same. Make him fly farther, I think would be cool. Or make him fly faster rather, even if he flies the total same distance. And maybe to make up for it, make it so that when you hover in the air, the time doesn't go down as quickly. Um, but speaking of, the only other really thing I can think of to complain about him is that his acid doesn't travel down very far. Like it has no horizontal range at all. So the whole thing is it's supposed to be vertical, but when you're vertical, like anything more than a low ceiling, if you're hovering above a group of enemies, it's pretty common for it to just explode just above their heads. So I think it should fall farther, so that to really emphasize his death from above approach. But really, that's all I have to say about him. Again, I'm a big fan of the melee attacks. It would have been nice to do something with like his claws or his super strength or something to give him a little something more. But that's a nitpick. At the very least, it's fun to cover someone in acid and then slap their skeleton around. Alright, Desperabro. This guy is great. He's one of my new favorites, and I mainly have nitpicks about him as well. Specifically, this melee attack is a ton of fun. It's very satisfying. The sound effects are top notch, and that's kind of all there is to say about it because I have a shotgun. Why would I swing my guitar? Like, what possible reason would I have to do this instead of this? Like, even if the guitar dealt like 3 times as much damage, it would still probably be dealing less damage per second than the shotgun. So, and that's kind of what I was talking about with melee attacks, is that they're fun and they're satisfying, but there's not really much reason to use them aside from just, I feel like hitting someone in the head with a guitar, which is cool and all, but it'd be better if it was, ever actually a reason to use it, like, mechanically. And, like, I feel like there should be some synergy between the guitar slide and the guitar bash. Like, maybe if you slide through mooks, you automatically hit them with a guitar bash. So, like, you can slide through a group of mooks and knock them all into the air and bash them and kill them. Even if it's just regular melee damage, that would still let him do it while running, which would give it some sort of utility. Because while the guitar slide is fun, all it does is reflect bullets, which is very cool, I admit, but it's pretty niche and it's tricky to use compared to things like, Neo's special, for example. So, like, in my heart of hearts, I want to slide and then, keep the momentum with this melee attack, but because melee attacks in this game stop your momentum, there's very little reason to use this. That's really all I have to say. It's just me continuing to harp on, I wish melee attacks were better in this game. Otherwise, the only thing I can think of is that I wish that, the posse did something when there were no enemies around, whether it be walking around or even just playing their instruments idly, just to, give some indication that they're alive, because, if there are no enemies around, they're just decoration at this point. They're cardboard cutouts. That's about it. The only other thing about him is that his shotgun is kind of not as good as the other ones. I assume the intent there is that, his other tricks and his guitar and all that is meant to make up for it. So I guess that makes sense. I just wish, this was better. Okay, wait, I just thought of something. Maybe this would be overpowered, but similar to how Ash, when you hit people with his chainsaw melee, it causes other enemies to run away in fear. What if bashing someone with the guitar caused them to dance, or maybe investigate, similar to McBrover's turkey? So, like, it would probably need some sort of cooldown or limiter to stop it from being overpowered. But, like, you're making everyone dance and everyone's having a good time, but then you just whack someone real quick and because you're just hitting them with the guitar, it doesn't quite cause enemies to aggro to you, so they just keep dancing. Or the loud sound effect from the bash causes other nearby enemies to walk over and investigate. Letting you then uh, make them dance or shoot them with your shotgun or whatever. I'm rambling at this point. It's just a thought, but yeah, you get my point. There's something cool you could do with this. Then we have Bert, and honestly, Bert, I have no complaints about. He is one of the best designed characters in Broforce. Uh, his gun is fantastic and fun to use. His special has a ton of utility and is great. And his melee attack is super unique and a great part of his kit that offers something the rest of his kit doesn't have. He can cause explosions and turn enemies into bombs. It's great. This is exactly what I was talking about. Like in a hypothetical Broforce 2, I think Bert is one of the good examples to look at for making characters. Just someone where every part of his kit is useful and fun. I think that's about all I have to say about Broforce Forever for now. I mean, I could make suggestions for new melee attacks of the Bros for hours, but I mean, for anything that could reasonably happen, I think I've said all that's on my mind. And I mean, I understand it's probably way too late for any of these changes to be implemented, but I thought this is probably my last opportunity to ever air these things before Broforce is in its final finished state forever. So I just figured I would ramble on for a while. If anyone is actually watching this video and you made it this far, thank you very much for your patience and giving me so much of your time. Final thoughts, though. I mean, Broforce is amazing. This update is awesome. Even if nothing else changes, I mean, this is still my favorite game. So, yeah. Thanks for watching.